Well, let's go ahead and kick it off. I think we got close to 15 folks in here. Hey, everyone. I'm Court Caston. I'm Quipley's Chief Operating Officer. If I don't look like Kyle, that's because I'm not Kyle. This is my first time hosting the Rental Roundtable, but got a friend of mine, Alvin Stolzfus, here. Alvin is a Quipley customer, but I've gotten to know him over the last year or so, and excited to have him on. Alvin, I'll go ahead and hand it over to you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into the industry, that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, I'm Alvin Stolzfus. I come from a strong construction background from a very young age. I have a lot of experience on what I like to say is the other side of the table. And due to some other circumstances, I wanted to slow down a little bit in the construction industry. I know I'm not that old, but with the history there, pretty high demand, very, very high demand occupation, and wanted to slow down. Had an opportunity to get involved into the rental business with a friend of mine based out of Pennsylvania. And so we relocated there and decided that that would be a good fit to mess around with that a little bit, see what happens. And with the end result being that it's everything that we do is basically in support of our construction business. So we do a lot of business with big name rental companies in our construction business. And I'm the kind of guy that likes to keep everything in-house if it's feasible. And if not, I like to rely on those that are better at it than I am. So that's what brings us where we are today. One thing led to the next, and we're in the rental business, and it's done quite well.
Yeah. So Alvin has a unique entrance into the rental industry. He actually comes from the side of he purchased a rental business. Alvin, do you mind kind of telling us about that journey? How you decided to target a specific business to acquire, and just what that whole process looked like from.
Absolutely. So like I said there in introduction a little bit, we are in a construction business where we do work all over the Southeast. And so not a very large construction business, very, very small by most corporate standards, with a high volume of work, with a basis on ironworking. And so because of how much we moved around, we had to, like I said, do a lot of rental. We own some of our own equipment as well, but due to logistics, it's impossible to move everything that we need to use on a regular basis. And I have a lot of children, a big family, and so it wasn't conducive to traveling full time because I do not travel without my family. I'm a big family man, so if I can't do it with my family, I'm not going to do it. One day, my son came to me and he said, "Dad, I don't want to travel like this, like you are." And I said, "Okay, then I'm done." And I had a friend in the rental business in Pennsylvania, and I spoke with him, and he was getting older in years and looking for somebody to take over management of his company. And so we worked out an agreement, and I went and worked with him with the intention of, at some point, I wasn't in a hurry, he wasn't in a hurry, that at some point I would possibly buy him out. And I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't interested in anything high pressure at the time, but circumstances, lots of different circumstances happened, and it kind of became imperative that either I buy his company or somebody else does. So along with that, working that plan, I was going to purchase his, as well as the one that I currently own as an addition, because they're very closely related and actually do business back and forth. And we were not able to come to a workable agreement between the two of us. He decided it's best he stay where he's at. And that was fine by me. There's no problem at all. No hard feelings, no nothing. That business is still doing very well today. And he released me from that. And an interesting part of this story that I'm sure a lot of guys that are listening now or listening to this later will want to know is I had everything lined up to purchase this company that I currently own, as well as the one where I was working with a friend of mine, and I had everything lined up. And when the deal went off, everything that I had connections was kind of connected to him. And so I was literally at ground zero, like starting 100% over on putting together a purchase plan. 90 days later, I closed on the business. 90 days from me and him parting ways, I closed on this company that I currently bought.
That must have been some late nights to figure that one out. So
I actually had to figure it out in about 30 minutes, to be quite honest.
Wow. Okay. That's efficient.
Well, that's going to lead into what needs to be part of the big, point here is how do you pull something like that off? And it's connections. It's knowing people. It's building relationships over a long period of time.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And so you mentioned, you were kind of planning on purchasing this business and, what was formerly known as Middleburg Rentals. How did you, and this is leading into a question that we have from the audience, but they asked, what attributes did you look for in finding the right rental business to acquire? How many rental companies did you look at, before finding the right one?
None.
It just the Middleburg one kind of fell in your lap?
Well, when this goes back to what I'm telling you, that any successful business isn't like setting out to try to find your business. You the business is there. You got to figure out where you fit into it. So Middleburg Rentals, the owner of Middleburg Rentals actually called the rental store where I was at. And I had already decided I was going to buy Middleburg Rentals. I had already decided that, never even spoke to the owner, didn't even know it was for sale. He called our rental store looking for some tax paperwork. Never spoke to him a day in my life. Hadn't even met him, wouldn't have known him on the street. But I knew his business was 20 years old. It's a good business. Okay. And it was owned by good, solid people, good, solid background. And I just simply told him, hey, I'm Alvin Stoltzfus. I'm the manager here. If you ever want to sell your business, let me know. I'm interested. He goes, huh? Hung up the phone. And about a month later, he called me back. He said, were you serious? And I said, absolutely. He said, well, it's actually for sale. Had no idea. Had no idea it was for sale. And so he had a very good price on it. We went and met, of course. And this would lead to answer that question. So many people want way, way yonder too much for their operation. It's not worth it. And so, a business can't even, most of these businesses that people are trying to sell nowadays, they can't even pay for themselves. And so he had a very good deal on the table, and we were able to go from there. So, did I look at other companies? Absolutely not. Have I since? Yes, there was a neighboring company come available for sale next to me, or had the right numbers and everything, but he didn't want to sell me any real estate. I don't buy businesses without real estate.
Got it.
That's one standard I have.
That sounds like a little bit of a principle of yours. Do you mind expanding on the reason, for that perspective on,
Well, I'm a businessman, and if a company sells and doesn't want to sell you the real estate, it's because they want to make money on that real estate. And so if they want to make money on that real estate, that means it's costing me money.
Yeah.
And I just don't need it. I'm just not that desperate. And that's the number one rule, is never be desperate. And never allow somebody else to have some kind of a hold on your operation that allows them to have any part of calling the shots.
Yeah.
And so if you've got I could see, like here in Florida, we're going to start up a business here. And if I had to rent a property for a year or so till I got something purchased or bought, that's one thing, but to buy a rental company, and then, because that owner, he wants his real estate to be his retirement. Mm-hmm. And that's all well and good and honorable. I'm just not going to be his retirement. That's kind of.
Well, I love the story. And I had no idea that was how you found the opportunity. I think
the short answer.
The kids these days will say you were shooting your shot, and it worked out, right? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So you told him you wanted to buy his business, and you found that opportunity.
But you got to understand, I'm 41 years old, and like a 40 or 50-year-old man told me when I was like 15 years old, he said, look, dude, you're not going to be where I am. I'm 50 years old. I've traveled a lot of roads. don't try to be like me, Well, that's kind of this, push it and give it everything you got. But I'm 41 years old. And yes, I pulled that off in 90 days. But understand something. Nobody, I don't care who you are, whether you're listening now or who you are, somebody, I don't care. Somebody says, I'll give you a hand. I'll help you. I didn't do it by myself. Nobody does it by themselves. I don't care if it just means a banker says, I'll take a chance on you. Nobody does it by themselves. So I can't give all the credit to myself.
I love to hear that. I think that's a great perspective and a humble one as well. Let's move into sort of what happened post-purchase, right? You got under the hood. What were some of the first things that, you wanted to change, right, or updated?
Okay, well, as I got into it, the first thing I wanted to do was to find out, spend just a little bit of time and find out what I call in business the ebb and flow. What is this business doing on a daily basis? What are its costs? What's coming and going? How are people paying? Where's the revenue streams coming from? And find out where the low-hanging fruit is. Because there's usually some low-hanging fruit there due to a difference in leadership styles, a difference in energy levels, and there was vast room. I bought the company with about a $1.7 million fleet, and within the first 12 months, I added $1 million to it, and we're at almost $3 million in fleet at that store now, just a little bit less. And I wanted to maximize. A lot of the equipment was aging in the fleet, and so there was a lot of upgrades that needed to be done, and as well as an update in technology. There was, it was old school. There was no damage waiver in place. A lot of handshake, net 30s. This business is 20 years old. So, and in the town where this business is, there wasn't even a Walmart. Okay. So you got then, doing kind of numbers that we were doing in a town with no Walmart. There's a lot of traffic, insane amount of foot traffic in and out of this store every day. And, I've been into a lot of stores where they've got one person running the rental counter. That ain't happening at this one. We have two and three, plus support. So, upgrading a technology, the ability to email, simple things like the ability to email for signatures. We didn't have that. The ability for people to make reservations online, to go onto a website that has some kind of modern competence, and actually make connections. That was the areas that I focused on immediately. Yeah. What does that look like? I mean, I think within the first week, I bought new computers. It took 5 minutes to print a contract on ancient printers. Little stuff like that, because you want to get that customer in, you want to get him out. No pressure, no headaches, no hassles. And so that's I started hunting down. Change of software was the first thing I went after, pretty much.
So I'd love to. We'll jump into the technology side in a little bit. We actually have a question that popped in just before you mentioned growing your fleet to be about 3 million. The question from the audience is, how do you decide what fleet to purchase? Do you use metrics and data or gut feel usually? Yeah.
So I had a feeling that, and I'm going to speak very specifically. So, and I'm not going to add a lot of disclaimers. I'm going to assume that people listening have the wisdom and understanding to know that circumstances change per location. At this particular location, the dirt rentals, mini axle skid steers was dead. We had a good fleet of it, but it just wasn't what it needed to be. 45 minutes away, a store that I managed, that was our bread and butter. Okay. So what I was able to see is we had an amazing aerial rental customer base. And we had very good aerial equipment, newer stuff, modern. Whereas the dirt fleet was good stuff, but not good brand recognition. So the first thing I did was bought some brand recognition track loaders, and those immediately superseded everything else around. Just brand recognition. And I'm not going to mention brands because I don't want to knock anybody, but brand recognition is a big deal. And upgraded stuff that was ancient, old, added to it. So areas where we were hurting, never had enough stuff, I immediately added more and added items that everybody else was scared to add. You know, we got into the spider lift category. I'll say that because there's a lot of rental guys that freak out at spider lifts. You've got to have real backbone to do that. You got to be confident in what you're doing because it pays off. So, and I only ever had one rental guy encourage me to get into that sector. Everybody else said, don't do it. And I met that rental guy at the ARA show last year. And and I had decided to not do it, to not get into the spider lift category. And I sat down for lunch at the ARA show last year and with some guys I think they were out of Wisconsin, but I can't remember the name of their company. He said, oh, absolutely do it. He said, just go gentle. So I walked over to CMC and bought one. So that's how that went down.
Well, I think that's a great, again, another unique perspective that you're providing because, I think a lot of people come in and they'll talk about, well, I have a missed rental sheet, right? I want to know how many, skid steer rentals I've missed. And once I hit a certain threshold, right, or my utilization's too high, maybe I'm gonna, go out and acquire another one. Yours, really, I think it sounds like you're looking at the data, but you're also understanding your customer base and your target customer and what can do well and sort of identifying that problem, right? It sounded like you knew. Yeah.
Because you train your customer base. There's no doubt. Because I'll make this very quick. 2 rental stores, 40 minutes apart. The one rental store does very good in track loaders and mini X. Not good in man lifts. That particular rental store never purchased a brand new aerial lift. Everything bought used.
Mm-hmm.
The store I purchased had bought new aerial lifts as well as new track loader mini X. But their track loader mini X was not a very common name brand, but not common.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a crazy aerial lift customer base. Crazy, like ridiculous. Couldn't keep enough of them around. Mm-hmm. And so one of the long-time employees there said that changed when the previous owner went out and purchased in one sector. It was in the towable sector of aerial lifts. He went and bought several new ones at the same time. And that was when that sector took off. So my point is that if you got to have good fleet, and when people have a good experience with it, you get known for something. You get known for, when we want to call it mom and pop shops. That's what we are. You get known for a particular type of equipment. I've known rental stores in other states where people say, don't rent anything from them guys because you'll be fixing it 5 minutes after you get it. And it's true. That was the fact. It was junk. So,
yeah.
So absolutely. You got to go by the data. Don't go buy a bunch of stuff. I have to do a shout out. I want to do a shout out. Am I allowed to do a shout out?
Yeah, you can do a shout out.
I want to do a shout out to Glenn Martin of Green River Rentals in Bowling Green, Kentucky. He is my mentor in the rental business. He's I don't know if Glenn's listening or not, but sorry if you are and I get this wrong. I would guess mid 60s. Okay. Very successful. And I asked him if you could give me one word of advice when I started getting into this, what would it be? And he said, don't overcapitalize. So it's easy to think in the rental business because I know what $2 million worth of a fleet does for me in relation to income. I know what that represents. So it's easy to think if I have 3 million in fleet, now those numbers will stay the same. Wrong. Don't overcapitalize. So don't just go buy a bunch of stuff thinking that I'm going to, that's going to pay. You have to buy the right stuff. And that's, I purposefully bought more than I needed for that little store in PA on purpose because I had that ability. I wanted to flood it till I had too much. And then I was going to take the excess and start somewhere else. And then add to that. So that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing.
So you had talked about, one of the things that you did when you got in there, right, was modernizing your tech stack a little bit, right? Implementing a damage waiver program. Can you take us through just sort of how you identified what was important to you, right? And what that process looked like.
Yeah. Well, I am not a very techie guy. I know that it sounds like on a professional level that I am, but I'm actually not. But I am a very practical guy. Okay. And I deal in facts. And the fact is, everybody wants to shop on Amazon. Okay. That's it. They don't want to go to Walmart. Shoot, I bought a new cell phone yesterday and I did it online, went to the Verizon store, poked in a little code, the box opened up, I got my sack and left. I didn't nobody. Okay. Nobody wants to talk to people anymore. Now, in my personal life, I think that's a terrible thing. But in the business world, that's the way it is. Okay. So I said from the start, I want rental software that allows people to rent just like you go to Amazon and buy a pack of toilet paper. And that's what I hunted for. And I spent in total about 2 years in that search. You call up a rental software company. Do you offer e-commerce? Yeah, we offer e-commerce. And, oh, great, wonderful, that's great. Sign me up. Oh, that ain't e-commerce. And then the next thing would go, do you have, yeah, we offer e-commerce. No, that's not e-commerce. Then the next thing along with that was, we live in the modern age. Okay, everybody carries a cell phone. Everybody all on an iPad right now. Okay. And it has to be easily accessible. So the next question would be, are you cloud-based? Well, we can host it or you can host it. Well, what does that mean exactly? Well, you can, host it at your server or we can host it on our server. And when I first started this, I didn't know what none of that meant. I didn't even know what a server was. Okay. But finally, I learned fast and I realized, no, I want cloud-based, not glorified remote desktop. And that is what about 85% of them ain't nothing more than glorified remote desktop. And in order for them, and I figured out quick too, that in order for them to change any of that would be to change the very basis of their software to start with. So they'd have to start over, and that's extremely expensive.
Yeah.
Developing something like you've done here at Quipley is stupid expensive to do that. I know that, okay, because and in this journey, I made connections with a developer, and it's, he could have made me my own e-commerce, built me a website, made my own, built it for me. It was cost prohibitive, but it could have been done. So that's what led me, and I'm trying to remember how I even got connected to Quipley. But I think it was after ARA last year. I demoed, I don't know how many different, and I even had, contracts signed with one. And after the fact, I called him up and I said, I'm sorry. I said, y'all ain't anywhere close to where you need to be. I'm sorry. I don't, and I want to bring this up if I have time, because I saw somebody make a comment on the ARA Facebook page just a couple days ago, and they were locked into a contract with somebody, and they were having a really, really bad day. Now, I doubt that guy is anywhere close to this webinar, but I want to make a point. Guys, If you are locked into a contract with somebody and they're providing terrible service, you can get out of that contract. Tell them to take it and shove it. Now, I know that's not a good thing for me to say because Quickly don't want you doing that to them.
Hey, you don't give legal advice on this podcast.
I'm going to say this straight to Quickly too. You don't want any customers locked into business with you because they signed some stupid piece of paper. If you can't provide the service, let them go. And I'm not talking, this ain't you guys, but I'm saying this other guy, that was his problem. He needed out of his contract and he couldn't because he said, I'm locked in for you. Burn it. I mean, what are they going to do? So you let them, who cares? Let them publicize themselves for suing you for being terrible at their service. Who cares?
Well, I have an old, someone told me one time, they said, if you're ever pulling out the contract, right, you've already lost, right? So
yeah, exactly. I understand contracts. Okay. But even in the rental store, if I have to wave a contract around to make a customer pay his bill, I have decided that I want his money and I don't care about a continuing relationship.
So let's I appreciate that. And I just want to kind of take it back to the technology aspect a little bit here. So you mentioned e-commerce was important. You mentioned cloud was important. Was there any other things that kind of like stuck out to you that you really wanted to make sure your provider, was able to facilitate for you, or were those kind of
So moving forward in order to advance, e-commerce is critical, and then being cloud-based is truly cloud-based, right? Is critical. The ability to grow without it becoming cost prohibitive. Okay. So when you take, cloud-based e-commerce, lots of users, okay? Because if you grow, an average rental store is going to have 4, 5, 6 users, okay? And it can be a lot more than that, and then you add another store and that doubles cost, affordability, okay, becomes an issue. And it's very difficult. It was very, very difficult to put all three of those together. I mean, I had the difference between what I'm paying now and one of the other deals that I almost signed. I'm at 25% for 2 locations of what it was going to cost me for one.
Yeah, there can be a lot of hidden costs.
You've got to be careful with that. And that wasn't even an e-commerce website either. Okay, so having that website, because so the things are cloud-based e-commerce, and that e-commerce, what about the website? Do you have a website? Does the e-commerce link with it properly? Does it mesh together good? Do you got to go spend $50,000 and build another one? You got to pay them $50,000 to build it. You got to be careful. And quickly, I got to say, and you wouldn't have me on here if you didn't know I don't speak my mind. I'm not saying you guys are perfect, but I'll say it exactly like this. You want to be. And nobody is ever going to be perfect, ever, because there's too many different people in the world with different needs. What's important is that you listen and you're trying. You're headed in the right direction. And I feel like I can truly say with the experience I have that Quickly is on the right road, headed the right direction, and the right people to get on board with, because the cost that you're paying today, I'm convinced won't be the same in 5 years from now. And there's very, very practical reasons for that. And I respect them, but you're headed the right direction, and y'all did that. I remember when I was talking with the young lady that basically handled the sale, and I had, I was trying to trip her up and I was trying to find that, like I heard somebody else say this morning, there's a rattlesnake in this deal somewhere. And I was trying to find the rattlesnake. And she just kept knocking my feet out from under. There was no rattlesnake. And this day, I still ain't found a rattlesnake.
I love to hear that. And I'm sure you're referring to McKenna. Shout out to McKenna. She's been one of the early Quiptillians. So we talked about
with Annika.
Oh, it was Annika post sale. Got it. Yep.
It was Annika.
Yep. So, we've talked about, kind of the process of purchasing. We've talked about technology. The third thing that we haven't talked about, and it might be the most important, right, is people. This is always a hot topic and everyone always has their perspective on it. So, I'd love to hear how you sort of identify and retain, great people at your business.
I am until it hurts.
Take care.
I'm serious. If you as a business owner don't stand to lose anything from somebody quitting, you need to fire them.
Yeah.
Because you don't appreciate them enough and they don't appreciate their job enough because you don't appreciate them. Culture. So what you're really talking about is workplace culture. And this is an area where, man, I see a lot of businessmen older than me and younger than me. This is where they trip and fall big time. People are not computer reports. They are people. And at the end of the day, you've got to remember that. And you have to treat them as such. And don't hide from the fact that you're trying to make money off. That doesn't need to be a secret. Don't hide from the fact that you're the leader for a reason. And they are the employee for a reason. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. It's just a fact. And we go around and we work out all these seminars on how to build teams and all of that. And here's how I look at it. I like it the way this one guy said. He said, your wooden axe might be special, but it still won't split wood. At the end of the day, I'm the boss for a reason. Ain't going to apologize for it. If you want to be the boss, go ahead. I'd love for you to take my job. That'd be great. All right. So, but treat your people, man, with honesty. Treat them. I know this is a cliche, but I don't know how else to say it. Treat them like family. If you have I tell my guys like this. If somebody has chosen to give me their time, and that's it, they're choosing to give me their time, they should be able to make the most money possible working in exchange for their time with me as anybody. And if they cannot, I need man enough and leader enough to tell them you could do better somewhere else and be honest about it. The problem is so many employers want to try to con you into thinking this is a great opportunity. Okay. You want to go work at the dollar store. It's a great opportunity. For what? To stock shelves and to unload Chinese product off of a trailer? You're never going anywhere. You're not going to be the CEO. Don't try to con yourself that you are. But unless you're going to be the CEO, you ain't really going anywhere. Okay. So, treat your people with respect. And the number one employee that you want is the one that you've already got. Don't lose them. And don't try to change people that have no interest in your goals and your vision. I've let very few people go in my career. I'm very few. But when I bought this rental store, there was somebody I had to let go. And I was honest with him. And I did exactly what I told people to do. I told him, you could do better working for somebody else because what I'm paying you is all I can justify paying you. And you could do better. Okay. Yeah. You can do better. And so you need to, don't be afraid to have bodies. Like, don't try to just have bodies. You want productive people. And take care. Don't be so tightwadish about it. Take care of them, treat them good. At our stores, at our businesses, at our rental company, every Friday, we bring lunch in. Most Saturdays, whoever's having to work Saturday, we bring lunch in. And I've actually conned them. That's a long con. I've done a good job of it, but I've actually got them to where they take turns on Fridays. The employees take turns now. And so it's not just me doing it. They take turns.
Seems like two pretty easy principles to live by. Be clear and transparent with them and don't extort them.
That's right. All right. Don't.
we just saved people on a management seminar, in about 5 minutes.
No, what I want to add to that part of that is don't extort people. Listen, employees are not doing you a favor by working for you. They're not doing you a favor. They don't owe you nothing. Nothing at all. You owe them. If they work 40 hours, you owe them a paycheck. They don't, like I tell my guys, and don't take this wrong, but I will teach my employees. They'll come say, oh, thanks for that paycheck. Like I say, look, I understand why you said thank you. You don't need to tell me thank you. I owed you that.
Yeah.
I owed you that check. Now I understand what you're saying. I appreciate it. You're welcome. But you earned it. No thanks required. And too many companies make their employees feel like, oh, thanks so much. Can I get my check now? No. No, they're doing you a favor. Act like it. Treat them as such, and everything will change.
Yeah. So we've got another question from the audience. And this actually goes back to, your conversation about, not getting overcapitalized.
Right.
Someone said, what kind of equity/debt do you have on your machines? And what is your debt stack? So do you mind talking about that a little bit?
What is my debt stack? Well, that's probably a question I'm not going to answer because it would probably freak a lot of people out.
We could talk very general about it. Not don't have to get into numbers or anything, but if you have
I have a very unique situation in that I have an ability to pull off things that, well, I actually think anybody has the ability to do it if they build the right relationships. Okay. Technically, I paid cash for about, I don't know, 40%, 50% of my fleet. And I made my first loan on a couple of pieces of equipment just the other day. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what that number is. I know that because I haven't been in the game long enough. My good friend Glenn Martin out of Green River Rentals, me and him have sat down and compared numbers, and he's been in the game since the 80s. And we've talked about his fleet, his payments, his revenue, my revenue, percentages, and all of that. And I should have thought about this and had a hard number before knowing somebody would ask this question. I really should have. And you know what? I'll do everybody a favor and I'll get a number real fast. Let's see.
Oh, you don't have to do that. I think really what people want to know about is just kind of the mechanics of it. Are you leveraging, manufacturer debt, on your machines, or, are you also leveraging maybe a small business loan or something like that?
I don't use any, I haven't used any SBAs at all. And I have good relationships with local banks. Now, I will say this, you absolutely need to take advantage of the manufacturer's offerings. And I'm going to put a number out there that's going to freak a lot of people out. And I'm not going to say the name because I don't want to get myself or anybody else in trouble. But I just did a deal for 0.99% for 4 years. And that's due to a manufacturer. So the deals are still out there. Okay. Yeah. So whenever you're buying a piece of equipment, and I'll say this, if you're borrowing money and you have payments on every piece of equipment that you're buying, you're going to be slow growth because boom lifts, especially the boom lift category, the cost of them is so high. They're going to just pay for themselves for the first probably 5 or 6 years. But that's a 10 to 12 year shelf life asset. So you can buy them new and let them pay for themselves, but you're not going to pocket a lot of money. And so, the little things, we have a tremendous fleet of small stuff. And of course, that's kind of like cash. You buy something $2,000 or $3,000. and get stupid rental return in relation to what you paid for, right? And that's a good way to build cash and to build equity, because if you only have big equipment, you're going to have a hard time discovering a return that feels equitable. Okay. I will put a number out there that I feel I can safely put out there that is more important. That's more important. So I am turning close to 40 to 50% gross return on fleet.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's possible. It is very possible. It takes a lot of hard work, and you cannot be lazy. Okay. But it can be done. So the higher, I'm not saying somebody go out there and buy $1 million worth of equipment, you're going to bring in 500,000. I'm not going to tell you that. Because there's also that place of a certain amount of production, I guess you would say, volume, that you have to have. But, I know that if you've got to be in that 30 to 50% category, or you're going backwards. Yeah. So if you have, if you have $1 million in fleet and you're not at least doing, 300,000-400,000, you need to figure something out.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that.
To me, that's the more important. And inside of that's payments. Okay. You got to make your payments out of that. And, debt service is a big deal. So, when I bought this company, I want to say that my debt service was probably, not even 20%. Okay. Of income. Not even 20%. So, that's where you it's kind of like anything else. You need to, probably stay in that 20-25% of gross revenue maximum.
Yeah.
Of debt service. And I tell you what, I don't know if this is proper or anything like that, but y'all have my contact information. And if anybody reaches out to you, I'd be more than happy to speak to people on a private level, deeper detail about various aspects of growing a business and managing the finances. Because what you have to understand is about 10 years ago, I about lost everything. So,
yeah, we'll make sure to distribute your contact info, with this. I'd love to, we've got about 15 minutes left, so I want to switch gears to your expansion. So Lads is expanding. Can you tell us a little bit about identifying that opportunity, right? And your plan for that new business?
Yeah. So I've told you in private, that I'm the kind of guy that sees a door and it opens and I walk through it. I don't wake up one day and say, I'm going to do this. Now, that being said, I know that in the next 5 years, I'd like to have, at least 5 locations. Whether or not I pull that off, I don't know. But I'd like that. So at the rate things have went over the last 2 years, I'm liable to I wouldn't be shocked at all if it was 3 times that. Okay. So yeah, so we like I said, everything's tied to my construction company, Lads Construction, and supporting that and working alongside of that. So we have a tremendous amount of work going on in the Florida region right now, and things worked out, and I was like, hey, you know what? We're going to be in this area for like a year, and I've got a good bit of staff here and team here working, guys, and I've got, Lads Construction has all the support equipment that I need for a rental business, and I'm here, right? Literally, the only thing I need is equipment to rent. So that's what happened. Like I told you, opportunity. Okay, let's see what happens. And I happen to know that the big names are about an hour away. Okay. And like I've told you in private, wherever I see them, if that's the only thing around, that's where I'm headed. Because that's not competition. That's opportunity. Okay. So, I'm not trying to compete with them guys, because They got a different customer base, right? And that's fine. I'm cool with that. But there's a lot of people that fall through the cracks. So because of being in the area, doing a lot of construction work, I'm going to need equipment. And I have, because in Pennsylvania where we're at, this is the downside. Like I'm talking rental revenue dropping to 30% of normal. Right? So got a lot of equipment just sitting around. Okay. And sure, we'll need it come spring, but that's the thing in the rental game that's easy. I mean, you can buy equipment anything. That's easy to do. Have an opportunity to spend it's another thing. So I already shipped one semi-load and I'm thinking to ship another. And plus every piece of equipment that my construction owns is also in the fleet. So I've got a very unique opportunity where I'm able to do a test run in an area and it ain't going to cost me anything. Because the employees for the rental store are employees of the construction company. So I will allow the construction company to carry it for its first 6 months. And then when everything picks up and we've got a good market here. This particular items are renting good. Well, I'll dump the money into that sector come springtime. And the employees that were, on the payroll of the construction company will just start getting paid from the rental company, and life will go on and we'll be off to the races. So I identified it by need, first of all. And then because of my construction business, I've already got a wonderful customer base. Okay?
Yeah.
I mean, most of my equipment is rented before I ever get it here.
And then you can, that'll help you kind of ramp up and acquire those other customers outside of,
Absolutely. And then of course, coming back to Quipley, couldn't do this without Quipley, the ability to go to the same website and the customer identify where it is they're shopping. Okay. We can push that. We can advertise that. We can use that in advertising. We can have it on our trucks. We can have it on our equipment, and they go to the ladsrentals.com and they can, where are you at? And boom. Next thing you know, we're building customers, So, that's how I identified that. I got places I want to go with the rental business, like places I would like to start a store, but it comes back to, you can go buy property, you can buy equipment, but you got to find somebody to run it. And that's another thing that my mentor at Green River Rentals told me a long time ago. The most important person at your rental store is your manager. And if you don't have a good manager, you're not going to have nothing. And that's true. You don't have good leaders working for you, you don't have anything. And so I've already got all of those people. Mm-hmm. Because of the type of work we do in construction, I have people and culture. My employees don't want to work for anybody else, but they also shelf life at kind of construction work. And so the other secondary purpose to this rental company is somewhere for my construction company employees to go when they don't want to run the road anymore. Yeah. So they retired the rental business. And my dream is, 3, 4, 5 years down the road, that I can get young men work construction 4 or 5 years. And then they say, hey, I don't want to travel anymore. Okay, where do you want to be? Well, I'd like to be here. Okay, let's go buy a company, start a store. You're in business. And they've already worked for me. They're already loyal. They've already got good leadership skills. And my managers are already here.
We are starting to see the master plan unfold, Alvin.
Yeah, you are. That is it.
The dots are connecting now.
Yes. Yes. That's why I say it's really hard to paint the picture in 45 minutes.
Well, all right. So I've got one more question for you. One more real question, and then one more fun question at the end. If anyone has any Q&A they want to drop in the chat, by the way, please feel free. We still have about 10 minutes left. Last thing is just kind of, there's any principles for operational success, right? That you can, kind of give us to walk away with. Would love to hear it.
Absolutely. Number one is remember that everybody needs help. Everybody needs a hand up. Okay. I don't care where you're at in business if somebody gave you a shot. Okay, don't ever forget that. And then the next thing on my side of the table is strategic partners. Don't be afraid of partners, but be afraid of uninformed partners. Okay. Having the right kind of partners are rich. I'm just going to tell you like it is. Okay. But in partners, the number one rule is everybody has to understand what their lane is and they got to stay in it. Mm-hmm. I don't care how many partners you have, there can only be one leader. Yeah. And that's the reason a lot of partnerships fall all to pieces. There's too many chiefs and not enough Indians. And there's only one leader, but you can make partners to gain loyalty and dedication. All right. And then the next thing is you've got to know, and this is something that I'm shocked about. Oh man, I'm shocked. I'll ask a lot of young business owners, what's it cost you to run your business on a day-to-day basis? Well, I'd have to go talk to my accountant or ask my bookkeeper. I don't know. Dude, you're already failing. You need to be able to answer that question. Boom. You could ask me right now, Alvin, what's your payroll going to cost you at the end of the week? And I could tell you really close. And so, I have on my store manager on his computer screen, I got a little sticky note with about 4 or 5 numbers on it. What it costs to run that store an hour, a day, a week, a month, and a year. If we don't rent one piece of equipment. Okay. You got to know what your stuff costs. Don't rely on the accountant. The accountant works for you. You don't work for the accountant. The tax man works for you. Okay. Don't expect them to do your job for you. You have got to know your numbers. You got to know your business. If you don't, you're never going to get very far. Okay. Because even once you have people in place to do those things for you, if you don't know what they're doing, they're going to steal from you. Okay. Or they're going to teach you, or they're going to do things they shouldn't. Okay. I don't do my accounting and I don't do my bookwork, but I know exactly what's going on. And my bookkeepers ask me permission. I don't ask them permission. You're the boss. Own it. Okay. Own it. And the another thing is that I say it like this. When you get up in the morning, if your number one focus that day is how much money you're going to make, you've already lost. Forget about the money. And I know a lot of guys are flipping out. Oh, but you got to, that's irresponsible. No, that's not what I mean. Use your brain. I'm trying to say it like this. Focus on service. Focus on being the best at what you do. Focus on having the best people doing what you do. Do a good job. Profits are a natural consequence. Opportunity is a natural consequence. I had somebody, I saw this the other day. Somebody asked a question, and I never really thought about it, but you each need to ask yourself this. And that question was, what is the definition of a leader? And for me, what pops into my head is somebody that charts the course. Okay. You chart the course. But the answer that somebody else gave is very simple, but very correct. A leader is nothing more than somebody people are willing to follow.
That's pretty good. I like that.
People won't follow you. You're not a leader. I don't care how many books you've read, how many steps you've memorized. So if you lead, people will follow. And if you do that successfully, and I will say this unequivocally, like this is, I think, a law of nature. If you do those things well, you treat people right, you respect them in their humanity, and as a man or a woman, you respect them, and you care more about people than profit. You focus on being the best at what you do, and the profits are a natural consequence. There's another natural consequence. You're going to have more opportunities than you can have. That's just the way it is. And I can testify to that in my own life. If you focus on those things, opportunities are never the issue. That's not the problem. The problem is choosing the right one.
Well, that's a pretty good capstone. Well, Alvin, this has been a pleasure. Last question.
Yes.
You know, we're all interested in equipment. What's your favorite piece of equipment?
My favorite piece of equipment, a Genie S40 boom lift.
Genie S40 boom lift, huh?
Yep.
Why is that? You're not scared of
It's a hot rod. It's dependable. It works. They're smooth. They're fast. They're simple. Man, it's just a great piece of equipment. Okay. They work great. Put a well package on them, and you've got a rock star, man.
Well, I think that's a great answer. So you heard here, go add them to the fleet, guys. But this, not financial advice, of course. Anyway,
Right.
Anyways, everyone,
they rent good.
That's great. Well, hope everyone enjoyed the episode. We'll send out some information with Alvin's contact. Alvin, thanks so much for being on here. I loved it. Thanks everyone for taking it easy on my first episode. And we will talk to everyone later.
Thank you.
See y'all.